Hello, my name is Darcy and I'm one of your friendly neighborhood teens / 20-somethings librarians. Today we're going to build spooky or seasonal paper lanterns with LED candles. Let's talk about what you'll need. If you picked up the kit, you should have a template, 2 pieces of black cardstock, 4 cut vellum windows. You could use white printer paper in a pinch if you're doing this at home without the kit, 1 small tub of black paint, a paintbrush, a small bag of glue, 2 toothpicks, and 1 LED candle. You'll also need some scissors, a pencil, and a ruler or straight edge for this craft. If you have a craft knife or a box cutter and you're confident in your skills, that can be very helpful as well, but not required. It's also useful to have some tape, but not required. If you didn't get the kit, no worries. You can find all these items at a craft or hobby store or even at some grocery stores. Now, a note before we start. This is a fully paper project. Please don't use real candles to light your lantern. It is highly flammable. Now, on to the craft. So the first thing we need to do is prep our template. You're going to want to cut out all of the solid lines, even the open middle panels. You're going to snip in on each snip, but only on this template, and that's going to help you figure out where these dotted lines or these dashed lines go. Those are for folding and you will not cut them. Once your stencil is trimmed and ready, you'll trace it carefully on each piece of cardstock, including the dashed lines on all the snipped points. So we're going to trace it twice, once on each piece of cardstock. Once you've traced the full outline and all the little tabs in on your stencil, I would recommend going in with a ruler or your straight edge and making sure everything lines up nicely and putting in your dashed lines, because you want those to be really, really straight. That is one template traced. We're going to do the other one real fast. Now that you've fully traced your template twice, we need to score the lines that you'll be folding. That's all the dotted or dashed lines on your template. To do this, we take our scissors very carefully and open them as wide as they will go. You're going to hold them like this, and you're only going to be using one of the blades of your scissors for this. We're going to place our ruler along one of our dashed lines, And holding our scissors, we're going to run one of the blades of the scissors down the ruler lightly. You want it to kind of indent the paper, but you don't want to cut all the way through. And that's how you score. We're going to do that with all the rest of our dotted and dashed lines. This scoring lets you kind of show the paper where you want it to fold and gives you a nice crisp fold. If you just fold cardstock in half, it gets kind of wiggly, but if you score it first, the fold will go exactly where you want it to go. One more note about scoring. You want to be really, really careful with your scissors, especially if they're quite sharp. So you'll notice that I don't have any of my fingers anywhere near the blades inside. So this finger is tucked all the way back here. Be very careful. You can absolutely cut yourself on scissors. All right, now that everything's scored the way it needs to be, we're gonna cut out our 2 pattern pieces on cardstock. So a word about the windows before we get started. If you're using a craft knife, this is pretty easy, but if you're using your scissors, what I would recommend doing is kind of carefully stabbing a hole, if you can, in that middle paper, or very gently folding it enough to get a snip in. Yeah, there we go. You don't want to fold it all the way because it's going to bend the structural integrity of the sides of our lantern, and that's not going to be great. But if you can just get it started somewhere, then you can really go to town. Now that we finally have everything traced, trimmed, scored, cut out, we can actually start building our lantern. To make everything look super nice, we will be constructing our lantern with the drawn on side on the inside, so you can't see all of your pencil marks, and that way you don't have to worry about them. So you're going to take one side and gently fold your side tab in. It should crease right along that line and give you a lovely sharp fold. We're going to do the same with this center line on the body. It's going to sit at a 90-degree angle, so we'll fold it about that far. These 2 scores here, we're also going to fold inwards. They don't have to be 90 degrees, but you know, a little bit. And now, and there's tabs at the top as well, the little side tabs go in. But these 2 top scores here, we're actually going to fold out. They're going to be the only folds on our lantern that go out like that. And we're going to do the same kind of pre-folding with the other half of our template. So remember, silvery side facing up, fold in with your long tabs here and here. Be very careful of your windows. in on these, in on the top tabs, and out on these top folds. All right, so to give our lantern a little bit of nicer shape, for these top rounded dudes, we're going to just kind of gently fold them into a curve. You're not actually folding the paper, you're just kind of giving it the idea of a curve. And the cardstock is pretty good, it will remember this curve. So yeah, they fold up, roll up just a little bit. All right, now we are ready to glue. So grab your little packet of glue and one of your toothpicks. I also tend to use my fingers for glue because it makes life easier, but you will be a little bit of a mess. So we are going to take one side of our lantern and we're going to apply glue right along this long tab, and we're going to do it on the good side. So the nice side up, we're going to apply a little bit of glue. All right, once you've got some glue on there, I like to kind of even it out with my finger. You don't want a lot of white showing with this white glue necessarily, because that'll take longer to dry. And then wipe your fingers off on a paper towel. Okay, you're going to take your other half, the other template, the side that does not have a tab, and you're going to align those carefully on top of the glue. So the glue is attaching to the bad side of the other half of our lantern. We want to make sure that bottoms connect, the tops are as close to connecting as we can, and you have a nice even connection point at the side. So you're going to hold that for a minute, maybe more than a minute. So now that those guys are attached, you're really going to want to let them dry completely before you move on to the next gluing point. I know it takes a while and you're going to get really impatient if you're like me at all, but if you start gluing the next structural element, then it's probably going to pull this one apart. So wait until it's completely dry before you move on to the next gluing point. Okay, we have let our glue completely dry, so we're going to move on to the next glue. So to finish our lantern and make sure it folds together like it should, we are going to apply glue to the other long tab and attach it to the last open side panel, just like we did the first one. Just like before, once that glue is fully seated, you are going to want to let it sit and dry completely. Now that the glue is fully dry on both long sides of your lantern, look, it is looking like a lantern kind of. So we still need to deal with these tabs up at the top. Now, just like we glued on the tabs, nice side, and glued to the back of the following side, we're going to do that with each of these top pieces here. So they glue in like this all the way around. You will not be applying any glue to these curved edges at all because we kind of rolled them a little bit. They should fit together fairly well. You can always mess around with them a little bit once you've got the top glued and solidified. Now, this is kind of the point where the tape comes in. If you're having trouble with getting your glue to set, you're welcome to try it with other glues you have at home, but you can also reinforce with tape on the inside. So just be very careful and run a piece of tape where you can't see it over any spots you need to, here or across any of the tabs. I wouldn't recommend putting it together entirely with tape because then your seams on the front will not connect quite right, but you can definitely put it together quite a bit with tape. So we're going to glue all the tabs around the top. We're going to go through this first one a little bit slowly, and then I'll speed through the rest. Put a little bit of glue on the nice side of the tab. Smooth it out. Take off any excess. And then carefully attach it to the back of the untabbed side of the next top panel. And then hold it in place for a while and let it fully dry. If you're in a big hurry and you want to cheat, this is often the time when I apply tape, just to kind of speed along the holding together process. But it's better for the structural integrity of your lantern if you just wait. And once the glue is completely dry, you can move on to your next tab. So I'm gonna burn through the rest of these tabs and we'll come back in a minute. So our last step is to work on the windows. In your kit, you received some black paint, 4 pre-cut windows that should be the correct size for your lanterns, and another toothpick and a paintbrush. These are all to help you work on your windows. Now, you can leave them blank if you want, if you're only interested in having just kind of a nice flickering effect with no designs coming through. Totally cool. But if you like, you can paint your inserts and make them spooky. Or not. So the paintbrush you've been given is kind of really coarse. What I like to do to give it a little bit more detail is trim off some of the extra bristles. So I just take my scissors and snip them off. Don't take off too many. That's what your toothpick is for, is those extra fine details, but otherwise I just find it's too much of a mess. All right, this is a little bit easier to work with. So when you're painting your windows, one thing to consider is that they are a good bit wider than the actual open space of your lantern's window. So don't go all the way to the edges with your masterpiece, otherwise you will lose a fair bit and will be sad. So we are gonna paint some spooky dripping goop. Once all 4 of your panels are painted as you please, you're going to let them dry completely. This might take a little while depending on how much paint you put on your window panes. So we'll be back when these are completely done drying. Okay, once your painted windows are completely dry, we can finally start assembling our lantern. So the next thing you need to decide is whether or not you want your painted sides to be face out so that they're really obviously painted, or if you want them to be face in so it's a little bit more subtle. So I actually really like the face out look. I want my lantern to be spooky whether or not the light is on. So I am gonna glue all of mine on so that the painting is face out. So first thing you're gonna do is take your glue and you're going to run glue all around the edge of the side you want facing up. So facing out, the side you want seen on your lantern. So it doesn't need to be a lot of glue, but you need some on all the edges. Okay, so once you have fully glued, you're gonna carefully slot in your window and hold it in place. Make sure everything is really well stuck down. Okay, so that's one side in. It's not terrible. It's not great. I got some wrinkles and I got some glue on the top of my lantern, but that's okay. There are worse things. And so we're gonna do that with all 4 sides of the lantern. I'm gonna go pretty fast, so I'll see you in a minute. And voila, your paper lantern is complete. So once it's fully dry, it should have a little bit more structural integrity now that you've filled your windows in. I went ahead and did 3 of my sides face out so they can be nice and spooky, but for the monster side, I kept it face in so it's a little less obvious until the light is on. So I'm gonna turn out the lights and you guys can see how it looks.